Alright guys, and welcome to a Phase 4 Season of Discovery tier list. Hopefully this video will help you make a more informed decision on what class to main in Phase 4. So you're probably doubting how accurate this information is going to be. Any tier list made before 4 months after the release of Molten Core is obviously going to be fairly inaccurate, but this is going to be the best educated guess that you can make so far, looking at all the public test realm logs on the test work boss, and also just having a really thorough, detailed view at all the class changes and set bonuses that are coming up in Phase 4. And another thing to bear in mind is we very stupidly did not get world buffs on the PTR. And now also, War Chief Blessing is also unlockable by Alliance, so everyone is going to have that extra haste buff. Here we have a collection of Warcraft log data on test work. But we can't just look at this graph and call it a day, because obviously we don't have data here from tier 1 sets. Some of the players are probably going to be pretty bad even if you do put it in the higher percentile, because there isn't a lot of actual logs, and again, no world buffs. By the way, I'd like to quickly thank Dakus on the Warrior Discord for sending me this. So first of all, we have the Feral Druid. Now honestly, Feral Druid are looking very strong. They have some big buffs with their increased attack power bonus on Rake and Rip, and an increased chance for Gore to proc. They are going to get the improved Swipe rune, which means they're going to be very, very good for AoE. The 0.5 set has an energy proc, and we know that, back in the day the Rogue set was insane because of its energy proc. And the Bleeds from Rake and Rip will also be able to crit with the tier 1 set bonus. Remember that the tier 1 set bonuses that we're talking about here, that's data mined info. But it probably will be correct because Blizzard are really crap at keeping the information hidden. So when we bear all that in mind, I actually think Feral is probably one of the most likely classes to be a pumper in Phase 4. By the way, we're rating this tier list on not just, the letters, but we've got most likely to be pumpers section, probably strong, not sure, might scale, and then probably pretty bad. Balance has also been buffed because they're going to get Starfall now, and we're also going to get a cooldown reduction on it with tier 1. And if you look at the logs, they are pumping a lot also. So balance is probably going to be very strong. By the way guys, if you're still leveling up your character at Alts in Season of Discovery, Cataclysm or Era, be sure to check out the Rustic Spear add-on, the fastest leveling add-on that you can get, created by world record holding speed levelers. You can find the download link to that in the description. Obviously the Hunter, particularly the Melee Hunter, did get nerfed a bit. Melee Specialist was in particular nerfed, but we are now getting Kill Shot instead of Kill Command, and it will actually be usable in melee range. TNT also got buffed, and the set bonuses for Hunter, they're looking a bit meh, and that's why I think they're probably going to be fairly strong, but probably top to middle of the pack, so I'm going to put Hunter in probably strong. And if we look at logs, both Melee Hunter and Range Hunter are looking pretty good. Mage are already pretty strong as we know, but they're getting buffed even more. They're going to get basically the ability to use Fire Blast when they're casting their normal rotation, and it's a guaranteed crit. Also, the set bonuses are a bit meh, but the set bonus for Frost, when you get your full tier 1, it actually looks very, very good. And both Fire and Frost are looking quite good on logs at the minute, but Fire is just looking that little bit better, so I'm going to put Fire as a likely pumper, and Frost, I'm going to put him in the probably strong section, but I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up being a real pumper just because of that tier 1 set bonus. It's very, very nice. Now for Paladin, they're definitely getting buffed. First of all with Righteous Vengeance, which is a new rune that is just a basic DPS buff, and also a lot of their abilities like Seal of Martyr and the Exorcist rune are now baseline, so then you can use other runes in those slots instead. The set bonuses are looking very good, but unfortunately on logs, they are just kind of looking a bit pants at the minute, unfortunately. A lot of people are saying that, oh, melee only bad at the minute because they don't have world buffs and they benefit more from world buffs. We'll see, but this is why I'm going to put the ret in. I'm honestly not sure. It might get better with gear. Priest definitely are getting buffed in this phase. First of all, we're getting Vampiric Touch, but then Void Plague has been swapped to a Foot rune. And this means you can also get Twisted Faith, which is a 50% boost to Mind Flay and Blast, so you can get that with Void Plague. 0.5 is a bit meh, but full tier 1 set bonus is looking very good, and they're also performing very well on logs. So they're definitely going to be a strong DPS. Definitely is not the word that I should be using in this video, honestly. This video is all about the word probably. I'm going to probably say about 50, oh my god, about 50 times in this video. I mean, maybe you can make a drinking game out of it, take a shot every time I say it and probably destroy your liver. So Rogue are getting a huge AoE buff with Fan of Knives, but then the other runes are also probably going to be very good for when you're AoEing less targets and just cleaving 2 to 3. We already know that tier 0.5 is very strong for rogues and it just has better stats now. I mean, it did make rogue the dominant DPS when they were able to obtain 0.5, so that's going to be interesting. But also the 4th set and 6th set bonuses for tier 1 are also looking very good, so it'd be interesting to see which one actually ends up performing more on the sims. And right now rogues are looking insanely good on logs. I've seen some numbers of 2.5k DPS, and that's without world buffs. So just imagine how good they are going to do with world buffs, and may even take over the Fire Mage, because obviously melee benefit more from world buffs. So rogue definitely most likely to be a pumper in this phase. So for Shaman, elemental massively buffed, but enhancement got nerfed. So they now have a rune that removes the chain lightning cooldown, but enhancement got the nerf obviously to mental dexterity. That's down to now 65%. The Shaman tier bonuses for 0.5 and tier 1 look very good. You've got 4 pieces of tier 1 literally making chain lightning or lava burst instant, and then for enhancement they get an extra 10% attack speed bonus on flurry. Both are looking very good here, but elemental is pushing ahead of enhancement. I've also just done a little reshuffle of my guesstimate on what is going to be best, based left to right. Now the Warlock got some slight buffs with the new Soulfire rune that you can now cast during the execute phase. 0.5 set really only looks good for tanks, but it will mean you need life type less. But 2-piece bonus on tier 1 looks very good, 50% more mana from a life type, and then you also get 6-piece, which increases the chance for Nightfall to occur, and will also allow you to use Nightfall on Incinerate or Immolate. If we look at logs, they are looking pretty strong, definitely not as strong as Mage is, but we also don't know whether they're going to be removing obviously the fire damage immunity on certain bosses. That way, Warlock are going to need 2 raiding specs, which will be an absolute faff, because obviously for Rag and Baron, you'll have to cast Shadow Bolt. You might be able to get away with just swapping some runes, to be honest, but we'll see. Shaman may also get the same problem, because obviously certain bosses are going to be immune to their lightning bolts. But if we look at logs, they are looking strong, up there with the Hunter. And a lot of people are kind of theory crafting, but probably mainly coping, that Affliction is going to be good in this phase, so I am going to put them not sure my scale section. And lastly we have the Warrior, probably the hottest topic now for tier lists. So first of all, Warrior did get an undocumented nerf. They can no longer double dip with their deep wounds, and the single Minor Fury rune also got nerfed. But they will be getting the sudden death rune, which allows you to sometimes use your executes, basically a proc based on melee attacks. It can be very overpowered, particularly with a 2-handed weapon. Recklessness cooldown got massively reduced to 5 minutes instead of 30 minutes, meaning, passing is going to be much easier, because by the time you get to the next boss you'll have Wreck. But it got nerfed to 50% instead of 100%. But to be honest, it isn't really a nerf if you think about it, because eventually when you get a better gear and obviously the world buffs, this will basically just be 100% anyway. Now if we do look at logs, honestly it's not looking great for a warrior. You'll have some warriors that will tell you, oh, they're going to get so much better with world buffs, and all the PTR data is basically inaccurate because of that, but it's looking like warriors DPS would have to double, and a little bit more than double, to compete with, Feral, Fire Mage and Rogue. And the Rogue will also benefit massively from world buffs, so you can kind of see why the Warrior, it's not looking incredibly hopeful right now. I think they will eventually scale, and they're probably going to introduce some changes, because everyone loves Warriors. Blizzard will eventually probably buff them halfway through Phase 1 or in Phase 2. I am going to put them in not sure my scale section. This might just mean that straight out of the gate going into Molten Core, they're not going to be topping the meters, but they might get much stronger towards the end of that phase. Or you've also got to think about Blackwing Lair when we get even better gear, how they're going to perform in that phase. Oh, and I forgot, I should have actually put Ret in the bottom section, because again, it's not looking massively great for them either. But anyway guys, hello to the people, by the way, who have just skipped to the end of the video. always take the information that you get from tier lists like this, particularly this early on in the game, with a pinch of salt. This is the best educated guess that we can possibly make so far. We'll be able to make a slightly better one, potentially, when all of the, Phase 4 sim information is out of beta, and all of the Phase 4 gear obtainable is actually programmed into the sim, because there's definitely some very funky items which could shift things up a lot. For instance, Arcanite Reaper is now a 4-second weapon speed weapon. That could be potentially really good for Warrior and Ret Paladin, and actually, give them a solid spot in the middle of the pack. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. I think Ret Paladins definitely have had a bad time of it in Classic. Anyway guys, my name is Metagoblin. Until my next video, ciao.